The Great Hall of Nexus Prime stretched for miles in every direction. Its crystal walls caught the light from 3 different suns, casting rainbow patterns across the floor where representatives from 12 different species sat in judgment. Today, they would decide the fate of humanity. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood alone in the center of the hall. Her black diplomatic uniform looked small and dark against the shining walls. Around her, the most powerful beings in the galaxy whispered, among themselves in languages that sounded like music, mathematics, and thunder. At the highest seat sat Archon Moral of the Shepherds. His people had been traveling the stars when most species were still crawling out of oceans. His ancient face showed no emotion as he spoke. "We are here to decide if humanity should remain part of our galactic community," Moral said. His voice echoed through the hall without any technology to help it. "The charges are serious. Humanity has broken our most sacred laws about peace." Sarah felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. She had trained for this moment for years. Behind her, she could feel the weight of her entire species watching through the broadcast. The first witness was Commander Zix of the Quantum Collective. His body looked like living metal that shifted and changed as he spoke. When he talked, numbers and equations appeared in the air around him. "Observe the evidence," Zix said. The hall filled with images of human space. Ships with massive weapons, space stations covered in armor and guns, planets surrounded by defense satellites. Humanity builds weapons where others build gardens. They prepare for war while we work. For peace, the images showed human military exercises. Soldiers training for combat, factories building warships, fighter pilots practicing attack runs. Sarah watched her species look like monsters through alien eyes. "Every human colony has enough weapons to destroy a small fleet," Zix continued. "Their children learn to fight before they learn to read. They have turned space into an armed camp." Murmurs of disapproval swept through the hall. The Etherians, who looked like floating clouds of light, dimmed with sadness. The plant-like gardeners rustled their leaves in what Sarah knew was their version of shaking heads. "They even attacked first in their border disputes," added Representative Kala of the Peace Seekers. Her blue skin glowed softly as she spoke. 3 times in the past year, human ships fired on other vessels before any threat was confirmed. They shoot first and ask questions later. Sarah stood up. "May I respond to these charges?" Archon Moral nodded. "You may speak for your species, Ambassador Chun." Sarah activated her own holographic display. New images filled the hall. "You see weapons and soldiers, I see survivors." The first image showed Earth as it had been centuries ago. Green and blue. And beautiful, but with deep scars across continents where wars had burned. "My people learned to fight because we had to. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we reached the stars." She changed the image to show early human colonies. Small and fragile, surrounded by the darkness of space. "When we left Earth, we were still learning how to survive. We built defenses because space is dangerous. We trained soldiers because pirates and raiders don't care about peace treaties." The hall grew quiet as Sarah showed footage of human rescue missions. Ships racing to help stranded crews. Medical teams saving lives on disaster-struck worlds. Soldiers fighting to protect innocent people from slavers and criminals. "You call us violent," Sarah said, "but look at our actions. Yes, we carry weapons. Yes, we train for war. But we use that strength to protect others. Every human ship that carries guns also carries medical supplies and rescue equipment. Every soldier we train also learns to build and heal." She paused and looked directly at Archon Moral. "You say we attack first? But those attacks stopped raiders who were hunting refugee ships. They prevented slavers from taking children. We fire first because waiting means innocent people die?" The images changed again to show human peacekeeping missions. Human doctors working in alien hospitals. Human engineers building schools on distant worlds. Human diplomats negotiating treaties. "Between warring species, we don't love war," Sarah said. "We hate it. That's why we prepare for it. Because someone has to be ready when peaceful words aren't enough." Commander Zix's metal body shifted into sharp angles. Pretty words cannot change facts. Humanity violates every principle of our peaceful society. They cannot be trusted to exist without weapons. Then what do you propose? Sarah asked Dot before Zix could answer. A new voice spoke from the side of the hall. It was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. Warlord Thax of the Krellian Empire stood up. His people looked like walking reptiles covered in natural armor. They were the only species in the council who still openly maintained armies. I have fought beside humans, Thax said. His words made several council members step back in fear. They are strong warriors. But more than that, they understand something the rest of you have forgotten. And what is that, Warlord? Archon Moral asked with obvious distaste. That peace is not natural, Thax said. Peace is something you must fight for and guard every day. The humans know this. They build weapons not because they want to use them, but because they must be ready to use them. Thax walked to the center of the hall, his heavy boots ringing. On the crystal floor, you call them violent. I call them prepared. You want them to give up their weapons and trust in your pretty words and treaties. But words don't stop pirates. Treaties don't protect children from slavers. Only strength does that. The Etherean representative pulsed with angry light. Violence breeds violence, Warlord. If we cast aside weapons, others will do the same. Peace grows from trust, not fear. Tell that to the Merchants Guild colonies that were attacked last month, Thax replied. Oh wait, you can't. Because everyone there is dead, and the attackers disappeared into empty space? Where were your treaties then? Uncomfortable silence filled the hall. The attacks on the Merchants Guild had been a mystery. Unknown raiders had hit 3 colonies and vanished without a trace. No one had been able to track them down or figure out who was responsible. Sarah saw her chance. Warlord Thax is right. My people have seen those attack patterns before. We've been tracking similar raids for months. There's something out there, something we don't understand yet. And when it comes, you'll need every weapon and every warrior you can find. Enough, Archon Moral said. His voice cut through the hall like a blade. We will not live in fear. We will not base our society on preparing for imaginary threats. Humanity has 30 seconds to promise to disarm their military and accept council oversight of their colonies. Sarah felt the weight of history on her shoulders. She thought of her daughter back on Earth. She thought of the children playing in human schools across the galaxy. She thought of the dark spaces between stars where unknown things might be waiting. We cannot accept those terms, she said quietly. The vote was swift. 11 voices said humanity should be cast out of galactic civilization. Only Warlord Thax spoke for them. As the final vote was announced, applause filled the great hall. The council members stood and clapped, celebrating their triumph of wisdom over violence. They had cast out the warmongers. They had chosen peace. Sarah Chen walked out of the hall alone, carrying the weight of her species' exile. Behind her, the council continued to celebrate. They had no idea what they had just thrown away. In the dark, between stars, ancient eyes watched and waited. The Guardians were being cast aside. Soon it would be time to move. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the battleship New Horizon, watching the stars through the main screen. In 3 hours, he would announce humanity's response to the Council's decision. The weight of that moment pressed down on him, like gravity from a heavy planet. Sir, incoming message from Earth Command, said Lieutenant Park from the communications station. Put it through, Torres said. President Nakamura's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, but her voice was strong. Admiral, the civilian evacuation fleets are ready. All colony governors have confirmed they can be ready to move within the timeline. Torres nodded. How are people taking the news? Better than expected, Nakamura replied. There's anger, but there's also determination. We've been through worse than exile before. Torres thought about that. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly destroyed their world and the long journey to the stars. Being cast out by aliens was just another challenge to overcome. Admiral, Lieutenant Park called out, we're receiving transmission requests from 17 council species. They want to know our response, Torres smiled grimly. Tell them they'll have their answers soon enough. 6 hours later, Torres stood before cameras that would broadcast his words across the galaxy. Representatives from every major council species waited to hear humanity's reaction. Many expected protests, threats, or desperate pleading. People of the galactic community, Torres began, his voice calm and professional. The Council has made their decision and humanity accepts it. We will withdraw from all Council space within 6 months. We will remove our colonies, our ships, and our people from territories under Council protection. Shocked murmurs came from the alien representatives watching. This was not what they had expected. However, Torres continued, we will not abandon our technology or our preparations for defense. We go into exile, but we go prepared. The evacuation began immediately. What amazed the watching galaxy was how smoothly it went. Human colonies that had taken decades to build were packed up and moved in weeks. Massive transport ships appeared at every human settlement, loading people, equipment, and entire factories into their holds. The Quantum Collective sent observers to watch the process. Commander Zix reported back to the Council with data that confused him. Their evacuation efficiency exceeds our mathematical models by 47%. They move populations like military units. What Zix didn't understand was that humans had always been good at moving when they had to. Their ancestors had crossed oceans in wooden boats and continents on foot. Now they cross space with the same determination. Dr. Elena Vasquez supervised the more secret part of the withdrawal. As head of human intelligence, she was responsible for Operation Looking Glass. While the visible evacuation happened, her teams placed monitoring equipment throughout Council space. The devices looked like broken satellites or space junk. Council security scanned them and found nothing threatening. They were just abandoned human technology slowly falling apart in space. What the aliens didn't know was that these devices were designed to look broken while still working perfectly. Phase 1 complete, Dr. Vasquez reported to Admiral Torres. We now have eyes and ears in every major council system. They'll never know we're watching. On the Etherian homeworld, the Council celebrated humanity's peaceful departure. Archon Morel gave speeches about the triumph of wisdom over violence. The other species praised each other for choosing peace. See how easily they leave? Said Representative Kala of the Peace Seekers. This proves they were never truly committed to our community. They prefer their weapons to our friendship. Only Warlord Thax remained worried. He sent private messages to Admiral Torres, asking where humanity was going and offering support. Torres replied politely but gave no details about humanity's new home. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this possibility for years. While the Council saw their military preparations as aggression, humans saw them as insurance. They had mapped the galactic rim, finding systems far from Council space where they could build new homes. These systems were not empty. They contained resources, habitable planets, and something else that had caught human attention. Strange energy readings that didn't match any known technology. Patterns of radiation that suggested someone or something had been there recently. Captain Lisa Rodriguez of the exploration ship Farsight filed reports about these findings. The energy signatures are definitely artificial, she told Torres, but they don't match any Council database records. Someone else has been in this space. Torres studied the reports with growing concern. The patterns reminded him of something, but he couldn't place what. They were organized and purposeful, like surveillance networks or patrol routes. Someone was watching the galaxy from outside. As the evacuation continued, human ships began disappearing from Council space. Trade decreased as human merchants pulled back to their own territories. The advanced medical technology that human doctors had shared became unavailable. Human engineers stopped maintaining the defense systems they had built on various worlds. The Council barely noticed at first. They were too busy congratulating themselves on their peaceful solution. It was only after several months that they began to realize what they had lost. human technology, had been more advanced than anyone had admitted. Their ships were faster, their computers more powerful, their manufacturing more efficient. Human doctors had cured diseases that council medicine couldn't touch. Human engineers had built systems that worked better than anything else in the galaxy. Their technology integration was remarkable, admitted Commander Zix during a council review. Our productivity in 17 sectors has decreased by an average of 22% since their departure. But by then, it was too late to change anything. Humanity was gone, scattered to the galactic rim. Their old territories had been divided among other species. The Council declared their exile a success and moved on to other business. In the dark. Between stars, the watching eyes grew more active. They had seen the Guardians leave. They had watched the galaxy's defenders scatter to the edges of space. The time for hiding was almost over. Dr. Vasquez's hidden sensors began picking up new signals. Movement in empty space. Ships that didn't appear on any sensors but left traces in cosmic dust. Something was stirring in the void between galaxies. She sent encrypted messages to Admiral Torres. Sir, we're detecting increased activity in the dark zones. Pattern suggests systematic probing of Council territories. Torres read the reports with growing dread. The energy signatures Captain Rodriguez had found were becoming clear. They were markers left by scouts preparing for something bigger. How long do you estimate before full contact? Torres asked. Dr. Vasquez ran the numbers. 6 months to 2 years, depending on their objectives. If they're just exploring, maybe longer. If they're preparing for invasion? She paused. Could be any day now. Torres looked out at the stars from his new command center on humanity's outermost colony. Somewhere out there, the Council was enjoying their peace. They had cast out the ones who could have warned them, who could have helped them prepare. Soon, they would learn the price of that decision. In Council space, trade ships began to disappear along routes that had been safe for centuries. At first, they blamed pirates or mechanical failures. But as the disappearances increased, a pattern emerged. Something was hunting in the spaces between worlds. The Council sent investigation teams, but they found nothing. Just empty space where ships and crews had vanished without sending distress signals. The darkness was moving closer, and humanity was no longer there to stand in its way. 3 years had passed since humanity's exile, and the galactic community had settled into what the Council called their Golden Age of Peace. Trade flowed freely between worlds. Cultural exchanges brought different species together in ways that hadn't happened for centuries. The Harmony Protocols had reduced conflicts by 90%. Archon Moral stood before the Council Assembly, his ancient face showing rare satisfaction. We have proven that wisdom succeeds where violence fails, he announced. The removal of humanity's aggressive influence has brought us closer to true galactic unity. The hall erupted in applause. Representatives from 11 species stood and cheered. The peace-seekers glowed brighter with joy. The Etherians pulsed with harmonious light. Even the normally serious Quantum Collective allowed their metal forms to ring like bells in celebration. Only Warlord Thax remained seated. His reptilian features showed concern as he watched the celebration. Something felt wrong to him, though he couldn't name what it was. Warlord, Archon Moral called out. Surely even you must admit that peace has brought prosperity to all our worlds. Thax stood slowly, his armor clanking. Peace is good when it lasts, he said carefully. But I wonder what price we might pay for it. Representative Kala of the Peace Seekers turned her blue face toward him. What price could there be for ending violence and war? What cost is too high for harmony? Before Thax could answer, an aide rushed into the hall. She whispered urgently in Archon Morel's ear. The ancient shepherd's expression changed from joy to confusion. What is it? Asked the Commander Zix of the Quantum Collective. Morel hesitated before speaking. There has been another disappearance. The merchant vessel Bright Prophet was due at Vega Station 3 days ago. They never arrived, and we cannot locate their emergency beacon. Uncomfortable murmurs spread through the hall. This was the 15th ship to vanish in the past 6 months. All had disappeared along previously safe trade routes. None had sent distress signals. Search teams found no wreckage, no signs of battle, nothing at all. Pirates, suggested the representative from the Garden Worlds. Some criminal group using new technology to hide their attacks. Commander Zix's metal body shifted into analytical patterns. The probability matrices do not support this theory. Pirates leave evidence. They take cargo and sell it. These ships simply cease to exist. Equipment. Failure then, said another voice. Space is dangerous. Ships break down. 15 ships in 6 months? Thax's voice cut through the discussion like a blade. All on different routes, using different technologies with different crews? That's not equipment failure. That's hunting. The word hung in the air like a dark cloud. No one wanted to think about what Thax was suggesting. Dr. Yulan of the Etherians floated forward, her cloud-like form shimmering with worry. Our precognitive abilities have been showing us disturbing visions. Darkness approaching from beyond our galaxy. But the images are unclear, as if something is hiding them from us. Mass hysteria, dismissed Representative Kala. Fear of imaginary threats. This is exactly the kind of thinking that led humanity to militarize everything they touched. Archon Moral raised his hand for silence. We will investigate these disappearances thoroughly, but we will not abandon our principles out of fear. Double the patrol schedules for trade routes. Increase communication checks with all vessels. But we will not return to the days of weapons and warfare. The investigation began immediately. The Council's best ships scoured the missing vessels' last known positions. Advanced sensors swept space looking for any trace of what had happened. The Quantum Collective ran probability calculations. The Etherians meditated on their visions of darkness. They found nothing. Captain Sarah Kim of the Council patrol ship Unity led one of the search teams. Her mixed human and alien crew had been trained in the new peaceful methods of space exploration. They carried minimal weapons and focused on communication and understanding rather than combat. Sensors show nothing unusual in this sector, reported her Quantum Collective navigator. No energy signatures, no debris, no trace elements from destroyed ships. Kim studied the star charts. This was where the freighter Golden Hope had last been seen. A ship carrying medical supplies to colonies. In the outer rim. Now it was gone, along with its crew of 47 beings from 6 different species. Sir, called her communications officer, I'm getting something strange on the deep space monitors. Very faint, almost background noise. Kim moved to the sensor. Station. The readings showed nearly nothing, just the slightest deviation from normal space. But there was a pattern to it, too organized to be natural. Is it a ship? I don't think so, the officer replied, his voice uncertain. It's more like something was here recently, like a footprint in space. Kim ordered her crew to follow the trail. For 6 hours, they tracked the faint traces through empty space. The readings led them further from the normal shipping lanes, out into the dark between star systems where no one ever traveled. Then the trail simply ended. Full sensor sweep, Kim ordered. Whatever made these readings has to be somewhere. The scanners found empty space in all directions. But as they prepared to leave, the ship's artificial intelligence detected something that made Kim's blood run cold. Captain, the AI announced, analysis of local space dust shows evidence of molecular disruption. Pattern consistent with directed energy weapons of unknown design. Kim stared at the data. Something had fired weapons here. Something with technology that didn't match any known civilization. And whatever it had fired at was completely gone. She transmitted her findings back to the Council. Within hours, similar reports came in from other search teams. Faint traces of unknown technology. Evidence of weapons that reduced matter to its component atoms. And always the complete absence of whatever had been destroyed. The Council called an emergency session. For the first time in 3 years, fear crept into the Great Hall of Nexus Prime. The evidence is clear, announced Commander Zix. We face an unknown threat using technology superior to our own. The disappeared ships were not lost to accidents or pirates. They were destroyed by something we cannot detect or track. Archon. Morel's ancient face looked older than ever. What do we know about this threat? Very little, admitted Dr. Yulan. Our visions show only darkness and hunger. Something that consumes everything it touches, but the source remains hidden from our sight. Warlord Thax stood up slowly. Around the hall, other representatives turned to look at him. For 3 years, they had dismissed his warnings about the need for defense. Now they waited to hear what he would say. I told you this day would come, Thax said quietly. I warned you that peace must be defended, but you chose to exile the only species that understood this truth. The humans? Kala's voice was barely a whisper. You think they could have prevented this? I think they were already fighting it, Thax replied. Their border patrols, their weapon systems, their constant vigilance. They weren't preparing for war against us. They were preparing for war against this. Silence filled the hall as the council members absorbed this possibility. Had they cast out their protectors? Had humanity been standing guard against something far worse than anyone had imagined? We must contact them, said Dr. Yulan. If the humans know about this threat, they might be able to help us. Archon Morel shook his head. We exiled them. We declared them unwelcome in civilized space. Why would they help us now? Because that's what humans do, Thax answered. They protect others, even those who have wronged them. It's their nature. The Council authorized immediate attempts to contact humanity. Ships were sent to their last known positions in the galactic rim. Diplomatic. Messages were broadcast on all frequencies. The same voices that had once condemned humanity now called out for their aid, but the responses, when they came, were cold and formal. Humanity acknowledged the messages but offered no help. They had their own territories to defend, their own people to protect. The Council had made their choice, and now they would live with the consequences. In the dark between galaxies, ancient machines detected the Council's growing panic. The time for hiding was ending. Soon the harvest would begin. And in human space. Admiral Torres read the desperate pleas from the species that had once cast his people aside. He felt pity for them, but he also felt the weight of responsibility for his own species' survival. The darkness was coming, and humanity would be ready. Whether the Council would survive to see the dawn was no longer his concern. The alarm that woke Admiral Torres at 0300 hours was one he had hoped never to hear. The deep, pulsing tone meant only one thing: massive, unidentified contact on the edge of human space. Torres was on the bridge of the new horizon within minutes. Still pulling on his uniform jacket, the main screen showed a sensor display that made his heart sink. A fleet of unknown ships had just appeared at the outer edge of the galaxy, and they were moving toward Council space. Size estimate? Torres asked his sensor officer. Lieutenant Park's face was pale as she read the numbers. Sir, we're tracking over 3,000 vessels. They range from frigate size to... Sir, some of these ships are the size of moons. Torres studied the tactical display. The unknown fleet moved in perfect formation like a swarm of insects. But there was intelligence behind their movement. Purpose and coordination that spoke of advanced technology and careful planning. Any response to our communication attempts? He asked. None, sir. They're not even acknowledging our signals. But, sir, double quote, Park citated. The energy signatures matched the traces Dr. Vasquez found from the ship disappearances. Torres felt cold fear in his stomach. This was what humanity had been preparing for without knowing it. This was why their ancestors had built weapons and trained soldiers. Not to fight other humans or even aliens, but to face something like this. Get me a priority channel to Earth Command and all sector commanders, Torres ordered, and patch me through to Dr. Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez appeared on screen from her intelligence center. Behind her, dozens of analysts worked frantically at monitoring. Stations. Admiral, we're receiving data from our deep space sensors. The situation is worse than we thought. New images filled the screen. The unknown ships weren't just advancing toward Council space. They were spreading out, surrounding the galaxy like a net. Their technology was unlike anything in any database. The ships seemed to be alive, their hulls shifting and changing as they moved. Biomechanical design, Dr. Vasquez reported. They're not built, they're grown. And Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting similar fleets approaching from other galaxies. This isn't just an invasion. It's a harvesting operation. Torres absorbed this information with the calm of a man who had trained for impossible situations. What do we know about their capabilities? They consume organic matter for fuel, Dr. Vasquez replied. Every ship they've destroyed, every crew they've killed, becomes part of their resource base. They turn living beings into energy to power their vessels. The implications hit Torres like a physical blow. This enemy didn't just kill. They fed on the death of entire civilizations. "Sir," Lieutenant Park called out, incoming transmission from the Council. Archon Morel's face appeared on screen, looking older and more frightened than Torres had ever seen him. Behind the ancient shepherd, the council hall was in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other in a dozen different languages. "Admiral Torres," Morel said, his voice shaking. "We need to speak immediately. A massive alien fleet has appeared at the edge of council space. We don't know what they want, but they're not responding to any of our peace overtures." Torres looked at the being who had condemned humanity 3 years ago. "I'm aware of the situation, Archon. My people have been tracking them for some time." "Tracking them?" Morel's eyes widened. "You knew about this threat?" "We've been watching for it," Torres replied carefully. "The ship disappearances, the strange energy readings, the attacks on remote colonies. This is what my people were preparing for when you called us warmongers." The truth hit Morel like a thunderbolt. The border patrols. The weapons. You weren't preparing to attack us. You were defending against them. "My people have a saying," Torres said quietly. "Prepare for war if you want peace." We learned long ago that the universe is a dangerous place. We built our defenses because someone had to be ready. On screen, Torres could see other council members gathering around Morel. Warlord Thax pushed to the front, his reptilian features grim but unsurprised. "How long have you known?" Thax demanded. "We've suspected 4 years, Torres admitted. "Our deep space scouts found evidence of their presence even before the trial. That's why we were so focused on building defenses. We knew something was coming." Representative Kala of the Peace Seekers appeared beside Morel, her blue skin pale with fear. "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you warn the council?" Torres looked at her with something between pity and contempt. "Would you have listened? You called our warnings the fantasies of a violent species. You said we were paranoid and aggressive. Would the council have believed us if we told you an army of biomechanical ships was coming to harvest all organic life?" The silence from the council spoke louder than words. "Admiral," Morel said finally, "we need your help. Our fleets aren't designed for warfare. The Harmony protocols left us with exploration ships and diplomatic vessels. We can't fight something like this alone." Torres felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Every human instinct told him to help. His people had always protected others, even at great cost to themselves. But he also remembered the trial, the applause when humanity was cast out, the 3 years of exile. "What exactly are you asking for, Archon?" "Military support," Morel said. "Your fleets, your weapons, your soldiers. Everything you can spare. In return, we offer full restoration to the galactic community and formal apologies for your exile." Torres smiled grimly. "You're offering to let us back into the club that threw us out in exchange for saving your lives? How generous." "Admiral," Warlord Thax stepped forward, "this is bigger than politics. If these creatures harvest the council worlds, they'll grow stronger. Eventually, they'll come for human space too." "They're already here," Torres replied. 3 of their scout fleets are approaching our outer colonies right now. The difference is, we're ready for them." He gestured to his tactical officer, who brought up a new display showing human space. The galaxy's rim was lined with fortified systems, each one bristling with weapons and protected by overlapping defense networks. What the Council had seen as aggressive militarization, humanity had built as a fortress wall. We've spent 3 years preparing for this day, Torres continued. Every human colony is fortified. Every ship is armed. Every citizen knows how to fight. We can hold our space indefinitely. And the Council? Morrill asked, though he seemed to already know the answer. Torres looked at the alien who had once judged his people and found them wanting. The Council chose to cast us aside. You decided that our protection wasn't worth tolerating our methods. You celebrated when we left. You called it a triumph of wisdom over violence. The alien invasion fleet was closer now, close enough for detailed scans. The ships were even more horrifying than the early reports had suggested. They pulsed with organic life covered in what looked like eyes and mouths. Some appeared to be feeding even as they traveled, consuming smaller vessels that had joined their formation. They're beautiful in their own way, Dr. Vasquez said quietly from her station. Perfect biological machines designed for one purpose: consumption. They've probably been harvesting galaxies for millions of years. How do we fight them? Asked Morrill desperately. Torres studied the tactical data. The same way humanity has always fought impossible odds? With intelligence, preparation, and the willingness to pay any price for survival. He paused, looking at the Council representatives who were waiting for his answer. The creatures feed on organic matter. They turn living beings into fuel. That means they're vulnerable to certain types of energy weapons, specifically those designed to disrupt biological processes. Do you have such weapons? Thax asked. We do now, Torres replied. 3 years of preparation time gave us the chance to develop new technologies. Weapons specifically designed to fight biological ships. We can hurt them. Hope flickered in Morell's ancient eyes. Then you'll help us? Torres was quiet for a long moment, thinking about his duty to his species and his conscience. Finally, he spoke. We'll help you, he said. But not as your subordinates. Not as forgiven exiles grateful for your mercy. We'll help as equals, with full recognition of humanity's sovereignty and our right to defend ourselves as we see fit. Agreed, Morrill said immediately. And when this is over, Torres continued, humanity will maintain its own defense forces. We will never again be told that our preparations for war are inappropriate or aggressive. The price of peace is eternal. Vigilance, and we intend to pay that price. Agreed, Morrill repeated. Torres nodded. Then prepare your worlds for siege. Because they're coming, and this time hell is coming with them. The first battle began at dawn over the Council world of Harmony. Prime Admiral Torres watched from the bridge of the New Horizon, as the biomechanical ships of the Devourers descended on the planet like living nightmares. Their hulls pulsed with veins of light, and their weapon ports opened like hungry mouths. When they fired, the energy beams didn't just destroy, they consumed, breaking down matter at the molecular level and feeding it back into the ships. Human fleet, engage at will, Torres commanded. The response was immediate and devastating. Humanity's ships had been designed for exactly this moment. Their weapons fired focused electromagnetic pulses that disrupted biological processes. Where the beams hit the Devourer ships, sections of living hull withered and died. But there were so many of them. Sir, we're holding our own, but they keep coming, reported Captain Martinez from the destroyer Defiant. For every ship we kill, 2 more take its place. Torres watched the tactical display with growing dread. The human fleet was performing magnificently, but they were vastly outnumbered. And every minute of fighting, more Council worlds went dark as the Devourers spread across civilized space. Admiral, came Dr. Vasquez's voice from the intelligence center. We're receiving surrender broadcasts from 7 Council systems. The Gardener worlds have fallen completely. The Etherians are evacuating their homeworld. Through the view screen, Torres could see one of the massive moon-sized Devourer ships approaching Harmony Prime as it descended. Smaller vessels emerged from its bulk like parasites, spreading across the planet's surface. Within hours, the beautiful garden world would be stripped of all life. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, Lieutenant Park announced. Archon. Morrill appeared on screen, his ancient face streaked with tears. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was in chaos. "Admiral Torres, we cannot hold them. Our fleets are being slaughtered. The Peace-Seekers' homeworld is gone. The Quantum Collectives. Core systems are under attack." Torres felt a familiar weight in his chest. The weight of watching good people die because others had refused to prepare for the inevitable. "What are your orders, Archon?" "We're evacuating all non-essential worlds," Morrel replied. "Falling back to our core systems and hoping we can make a stand there." "But Admiral ... his voice broke. "We don't have enough ships. We don't have the weapons. We're not warriors." "No," Torres agreed quietly, "you're not." The words hung between them. Like an accusation? 3 years ago, the Council had cast out the warriors. Now, when they needed warriors most, they had none. "Admiral," Warlord Thax's voice cut through the cum. His ship, the Ironclaw, was holding position near the human fleet, its weapons blazing at the Devourer swarm. "What are your intentions? Will you continue to support our evacuation?" Torres looked at the tactical display showing the collapse of Council space. Billions of beings were dying as the Devourers consumed world after world. His human instincts screamed at him to save them, to sacrifice everything to protect the innocent. But he also saw the bigger picture. He saw the fortress humanity had built in the galactic rim. He saw his own people, finally safe behind defenses that could actually hold against this threat. He had a responsibility to them first. "We'll cover your evacuation," Torres said finally. "But then we withdraw to human space." "Admiral," Morel's voice was desperate, "surely you're not abandoning us completely?" Torres looked at the alien who had once sat in judgment of his people. "Archon Morel, 3 years ago you told me that humanity was too violent to exist in civilized space. You said our weapons and our warriors had no place in your peaceful galaxy. You were probably right." "I don't understand," Morel said. "We are too violent for your civilization," Torres continued. "We build weapons you consider excessive. We prepare for wars you think will never come. We train soldiers when you believe diplomacy is always the answer. You cast us out for these things." The truth was beginning to dawn on Morel's face. "Now the monsters have come," Torres said. "The real monsters, not the imaginary ones you thought." "We were, and yes, we could fight them. We could spend our ships and our lives defending your worlds, but at what cost?" On the tactical display, another Council world went dark. "If we commit everything to saving you, we might succeed," Torres admitted, "but we would be weakened. Our own defenses would be compromised. And when the next threat comes, when something even worse emerges from the darkness between galaxies, there would be no one left to stand guard." "You're condemning us to death?" whispered Representative Kala from somewhere off-screen. "No," Torres replied. "You condemned yourselves when you chose to live without the capacity for violence. We offered to be your guardians, and you threw us away. Now you face the consequences of that choice." "But the innocent people," Morel pleaded. "The children, the civilians who had no part in the Council's decision." Torres felt that weight again, heavier than before. "I know, and it hurts to watch them die. But I have innocent people too, human children who depend on me to keep them safe. I will not sacrifice their future for your past mistakes." The evacuation continued for 6 more hours. Human ships held the line while Council vessels loaded with refugees fled toward the galactic rim. Not everyone could be saved. Entire species that had taken millions of years to evolve were consumed in minutes by the Devourer fleets. As the last Council ship cleared the battle zone, Torres gave the order to withdraw. The human fleet disengaged and fell back toward their own territory, leaving the Devourers to finish consuming what remained of Council space. "Sir," Lieutenant Park said quietly, "we're receiving a final transmission from Archon Morel." Torres nodded. "Put it through." Morel's face appeared one last time, transmitted from a refugee ship fleeing toward unknown space. "Admiral Torres, I want you to know that I understand now. We were wrong to exile you." "We were wrong about everything, I know," Torres replied. "Will you remember us?" Morel asked. When the histories are written, will you tell them that we tried to be good? That we believed in peace and understanding? Torres considered the question seriously. I'll tell them you believed in ideals that were beautiful but impractical. I'll tell them you tried to build a civilization based on trust and cooperation. And I'll tell them it worked for a while. And when the next threat comes, Morrill asked. Humanity. We'll be ready, Torres said simply. We always are. The transmission ended. Torres never saw Archon Morrill again. The Devourers finished consuming council space within a month. Billions died. Entire civilizations that had existed for millennia were reduced to fuel for the biomechanical ships. The galaxy became a much smaller and darker place, but they did not enter human space. The fortress humanity had built in the galactic rim held firm. The weapons the Council had called excessive proved barely adequate against the Devourer fleets. The soldiers they had dismissed as primitive fought with skill and determination that turned back wave after wave of attacks. The war lasted 3 years. In the end, humanity didn't defeat the Devourers so much as convince them that this galaxy was too well defended to be worth the cost of conquering. The biomechanical fleets withdrew to hunt easier prey among the stars. Dr. Vasquez tracked them as they departed. They're heading toward the Andromeda Galaxy, she reported. Probably looking for civilizations that haven't learned to fight back, Torres nodded grimly. Send a warning message to any inhabitants of that galaxy. Tell them. What's coming? Give them our weapons designs and tactical data. Will they listen? Vasquez asked. Torres smiled sadly. Probably not. Most civilizations have to learn the hard way that peace is something you have to fight for. In the years that followed, human ships found scattered groups of Council refugees hidden throughout the galaxy. Some had established small colonies on dead worlds. Others had joined pirate fleets or become wandering traders. A few had even adapted to the harsh life of space nomads. Humanity helped them when they could, offering supplies and protection. But they never again attempted to rebuild the galactic community they had lost. The price of that idealism had been too high. Instead, humanity took on the role they had always been meant for. They became the guardians of the galaxy, the watchers in the dark who prepared for threats others couldn't imagine. They built bigger weapons and trained harder soldiers. They explored the spaces between stars, looking for signs of new dangers, and they waited, because Admiral Torres had been right about one thing: there would always be a next threat. The universe was vast and full of things that viewed organic life as nothing more than food. Peace was not the natural state of existence. It was something that had to be earned and defended every single day. The Council had learned this lesson. Too late. They had chosen to live in a dream of eternal peace, and that dream had become a nightmare when reality intruded. Humanity would not make the same mistake. They would remain vigilant. They would stay strong. And when the darkness came again, as it inevitably would, they would be ready. In the deep archives of the Human Intelligence Service, Dr. Vasquez maintained files on every species that had once been part of the galactic community. She tracked their descendants, their cultures, their struggles to survive in a much more dangerous universe.